more questions later on. As you just heard, this webinar will be recorded, and it is OBI's second Paid Leave Oregon webinar. This one is about more, we'll have more information about the rollout and how things are going, and more, maybe perhaps more information from the folks at Paid Leave Oregon about how things are going and what we can expect. I will introduce the folks. Right now, we have Emily Sokolsky, who is an outreach program analyst, Sarah Ambrosic, operations and policy analyst, and Shannon Ball, who is a senior policy analyst for the Paid Leave Oregon program. As I said earlier, there will be time for questions today. To ask one, please use the question and answer function in the Zoom, and you should be able to use that button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And with that, I'll turn it over to Shannon, Emily, and Sarah.
Hi, good morning, everybody. As Derek mentioned, my name is Sarah Ambrosic. I use pronouns she and her, and I'm an operations and policy analyst with Paid Leave Oregon. Thanks for having us back again. We'll go ahead and, Emily, we can go to the next slide. So we're going to drop a link in the chat for this Paid Leave Oregon guidebook. And this guidebook gives a general overview of employer rights and responsibilities under the Paid Leave Oregon program. As you all know, Paid Leave Oregon is a new program that ensures individuals and families of every kind have the time and support they need to care for themselves and their loved ones when life's important moments affect their health and safety. In Oregon, paid leave is for up to 12 weeks with 2 additional weeks for some pregnancy-related conditions. Now, you can take Paid Leave Oregon under 3 categories. Our first one we have is family leave, and that's to care for a family member with a serious illness or injury, or to bond with a new child after birth, adoption, or foster care placement. Paid leave defines family as anyone related by blood or affinity. And Senate Bill 999 aligned the definition of family between OFLA and paid leave. In August, the Oregon Employment Department and the Bureau of Labor and Industries released temporary rules defining those affinity factors. Second category is medical leave. That's to care for yourself during a serious health condition, and includes the physical and mental impacts due to miscarriage and stillbirth. And thirdly, we have safe leave, and that is for individuals who may have experienced sexual assault, domestic violence, harassment, or stalking. Now, Paid Leave Oregon covers most employees who work in Oregon. You may qualify for benefits if you work seasonal, full-time, or even part-time. The size of your employer does not impact your coverage as an employee. Paid leave does not cover federal government employees, individuals participating in a state or federal work training assistance program, undergraduate or graduate students in work-study programs, railroad workers who are exempt under the Federal Railroad Unemployment Insurance Act, and paid leave does also not cover volunteers. For those self-employed individuals, you may opt into paid leave, and we have an overview on our website for how this would look. You are covered if you're employed and your work is located in Oregon. You earned at least $1,000 in subject wages in the year prior to your qualifying event. You contributed to paid leave through payroll deductions, and those contributions started January of this year. You experience a qualifying event, and you must have a Social Security number or an individual tax identification number. Now, employees who are eligible to receive unemployment insurance or workers' compensation are not eligible for paid leave. So paid leave does not replace OFLA or FEMLA, and there are important differences between the three programs. Again, Senate Bill 999 aligned paid leave Oregon and OFLA for leave to be taken concurrently if the leave qualifies under both OFLA and paid leave Oregon. Paid leave allows claimants to use paid leave benefits with other leave benefits such as short-term disability, vacation, sick leave, or any other type of earned time off. And we really encourage claimants to talk to their employers and insurance providers about using that additional paid time off benefits. Employees will need to provide the appropriate documentation to support the type of leave they're applying for. And you can find the documentation verification checklist on our website in the employee guidebook, and that actually starts on page 21. Now, every covered employee in Oregon, again, can take up to 12 weeks of paid leave in a 1-year period, or we also call that a benefit year. For all types of leave, you can take your leave for a week, a day, or a number of days that fall less than a week. You cannot take leave in amounts less than a day. You can also choose between 2 different options for your leave schedule. It's consecutive or intermittent leave. And keep in mind, you cannot work during days that you are on leave. And if you have more than one employer, you must take leave from all of your employers on the days you are claiming paid leave. Benefit years are a rolling 52-week period, and that starts the Sunday before your leave begins. Now, if you have multiple qualifying events in a single year, then you must file separate applications. And if you have a chronic medical condition, then you will need to file a new application every benefit year. For foreseeable leave, the employee must inform their employer at least 30 days prior to starting leave. And for those unforeseeable circumstances, the employee or their designated authorized representative must provide verbal notice within 24 hours and written notice within 3 days. The employer notification of leave policy may ask what type of leave you're taking. So again, that's family, medical, or safe leave. Why you need to take the leave, when and for how long you expect to take leave. And if you don't know exactly, then you can just give your employer an estimate. Paid leave will notify the employer at the time that we receive an application, and then additionally when a decision has been made. So contributions are contributions are a percentage of wages that are paid by both the employees and employers. The employment department will set that contribution rate annually by November 15th, and the rate cannot exceed 1% of those gross employee wages. So the rate for 2023 is 1%, and that caps at $132,900 in wages. Any earnings over that will not be subject to further contributions. Employees pay 60% of the contribution rate, and if you are a large employer, which is 25 or more employees, then they will pay 40% of that rate. Small employees, which is fewer than 25 employees, are not required to pay the employer portion of contribution, but the employers could choose to pay the employer portion as a benefit to their employees. When we calculate benefits, we'll look at how much the employee earned compared to the state average weekly wage, which is currently at about $1,270, and that runs through June of next year. People are earning 65% or less than the state average weekly wage, which is about $825, will receive 100% wage replacement. And for people that are earning more than that $825 a week, we will calculate your benefit by taking 65% of that state average weekly wage. Again, that's $825 plus 50% of your average weekly wages that exceed that amount. And currently, the minimum weekly benefit for Paid Leave Oregon is $63.48. And the maximum weekly benefit is $1,523.63. We also have a nifty benefits calculator on our website, so you can just pop in your wages and it'll give you an estimate of what that weekly benefit would look like. Paid leave benefits are taxable, so you may need to pay federal and state personal income taxes on your benefits if you opt out of withholdings. So to reduce the amount of taxes you need to pay at the end of the year, you can authorize paid leave to withhold state or federal taxes from your benefit payments. And you can do this tax election during your initial claim or anytime after that via Francis Online, or you can download the tax form and mail it in to us. If you have worked for your employer for 90 days, your job will be protected while you are on leave. An employee returning from leave must be restored to the same position the employee held prior to taking leave. Now, if that position no longer exists, then the employee must be reinstated to an equivalent position. If the equivalent position is not available at the same job site, then the employee must offer an equivalent position at a different location within 50 miles of the prior job site. If equivalent jobs are available at multiple sites, then the employee must be offered the position at the job site that is nearest to the employee's prior job. Your employer must also keep your healthcare benefits in place while you're on leave, and they can also require you to keep paying the same premium costs that you have normally paid. So this concludes our mini presentation, and now we can open it up for any questions that you might have.
Sarah, it looks like there's a question from Shannon Gert. Does Paid Leave Oregon cover bereavement?
Hey, Shannon. So that is one of the leaves or the types of leaves that paid leave does not cover. It also does not cover Oregon sick child and military leave.
Thank you.
Oh, where'd it go? Julie, hello. Is this seminar for employees and not the employer per se? I'm only interested in my obligations as an employer. So we kind of modified this to gear towards more for employers, but we do have presentations that we offer for everybody, including employees. And we actually have one today. It's part of our community conversations that we have each week. And we have one today at 3 o'clock. So if you want to register for that, you can go to our website. It starts at 3. It's for, and it's an hour long. And we also will open it up for live Q&A as well.
But Julie, if there's any questions that you have here today, we're more than happy to answer any of those from the employer's perspective. So please raise your hand and we can call on you as well.
Yes.
Okay, Sarah, it looks like another question. Does Paid Oregon max out? Are you, sorry if I mispronounced your name, Griselda, does that mean max out for the amount of pay that some individual can receive, the amount of weeks? to answer both of those questions, if an individual, the benefit payment amounts are based on your average weekly wage as well as the state average weekly wage, and Sarah went over that calculation a little bit. So it does max out at $1,500 and I think $69. I can't remember the exact amount. And it does max out for the number of weeks an individual can claim in a benefit year, which is 12 weeks. And then you could, some individuals could qualify for an additional 2 weeks for pregnancy leave. So hopefully that answers your question, but if not, feel free to raise your hand.
Shannon, can you help me with Christy's question about termed and rehiring?
Sure. The question is, if an employee is termed and then rehired, currently active, do we answer no, they are not terminated since they are not currently termed? So Christy, I might have you come off mute to follow up on this question. I think you're asking is, they're still on the books, but they're not actively working. Then they would still be considered your employee, is my understanding. But if you have more information or more specifics, if I didn't answer that question correctly, or answer your question, I mean, please feel free to raise your hand. Let me see.
I see we have a few. Oh, Christy,
Perfect.
Are you able to unmute?
Okay, I figured it out. Thank you. Yeah, so we've had a couple situations that our processing team has asked me about regarding, it's asking if they're termed. They technically have been termed, but they're currently active again. Is it really just you guys wanting to know if they're currently inactive?
We're wanting to know if they're not working for you. Because if an individual is not working, then they do not qualify for paid leave. And so that's the main question, if they're actively your employee or not.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I just wanted to double check.
Perfect. And I think you had another question down lower. So while you're unmuted, let's go to that one as well. Sure.
So just something that we've experienced, I oversee the target corporation completion of these, and we have obviously a large amount of team members and employees. So what we're finding is it can be difficult when there are more common names, because we just have the names. If there's any potential to add any sort of additional point of checking besides just us checking if they're from Oregon or not.
So Christy, I think you're talking about the letter that's sent to the employer saying your employee has applied for paid leave Oregon benefits. Is that the letter you're talking about?
So yes, we get the letter, but we also work the requests online. We've been using the online Francis portal as kind of the source of truth. Because what we're seeing is we're receiving letters for some individuals that aren't on the website. So that's another question I have. So we are seeing some discrepancies there.
So a couple of things here. If you, as an employer, have elected to receive the notices via electronically, you should be just getting them through Francis Online. However, we have heard some cases where people are still getting them by paper as well. And so if that does occur, it would be helpful for you to submit that on the Contact Us so we can at least have some examples, because it's hard for us to find that and figure out what's going on. Because if you do elect it as electronic, then you should not be getting them by paper anymore.
Okay.
And then the second question, when you fill out the letter on Francis Online, that initial letter should have the employee's name plus their date of birth. That was the other thing that we were using to help identify the employee. But we have heard some feedback that additional information would be helpful to have on the letter. So we're always constantly looking at trying to change that, but it will take some time.
So I guess on that note, because the questionnaires that we fill out just have the name and then the 3 questions, but I know what you mean when you say the letter, because we obviously get that through our PR tax team, but we also have I see that there is an option for the letters online.
Uh-huh.
Should I be looking at the letters first
No, I
and
think
cross-checking, or?
no, it should be exactly the same that you see in Francis Online versus the letter you're getting in the mail. So if it's not, then that is another situation that I think you could bring forward as well. So you shouldn't have to do that cross-checking. There shouldn't be duplicative work needed there.
Yeah, because what I do on the website is I go to the questionnaires and then respond to questionnaire. And that has like the current list of what we need to work that day or whatnot of the team member, and it just has their name. But there is another section where it says I want to, and then you can view the letters or submit documentation. So I'm wondering if because it just says select the letter ID your letter corresponds with and
Correct.
upload the document. But we've never seen a spot where like those are the requests. It's in the questionnaire that we've been submitting it.
Yeah, so we have heard from employers as well that it would be nice that like you said, you can just see the letter ID and not a name of the employee. So you have to like click on each one to open it up and determine if that's the employee that you're looking for. And so we have taken that feedback to our developers as well to hopefully get that changed a little bit so it can be easier to recognize who you're actually opening up and trying to answer for the question for.
Yeah, it would just be nice.
Feedback.
Yeah, it would just be nice to see, like, even if they just had like the letter ID on there or something, but if we're not receiving the letters, because I mean, I turned that off, I guess, on the electronic, the settings piece, but you know, as you said, it sounds like some people are still getting them, but even if there's like some other kind of checkpoint that we can see in the questionnaires, it would be nice to just make sure we're doing everything we need to do.
Yeah. And we'll take that feedback, so thank you.
Yeah. I did just have one more question really quick since I'm off mute. Just in case, because I'm sure you'll probably need to clarify, but is there any sort of reporting that employers can pull off of the website for, you know, how many requests we're completing, just to kind of manage the volume?
Oh, to my knowledge, there is not a report at the moment for the employer. I do think that's great feedback, and I will take that forward to our developers as well. For you to say, you know, how many do we do this month? You know, run a report on average type thing. We are looking at also sending in the future to employers letters after the fact of saying these are the days that an employee took off. And so that we're in development for that as well. So that will be a reconciliation, but it won't be an actual report that you can file or do on the Francis Online website.
Okay.
But thank you for that feedback. I'll put that on as well.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. That's all I have right now.
Thank you. Sarah, do we want to go to a couple questions or do we want to go to the next hand raised?
Well, I think Renee Gomez, she's got her hand raised, and I think she's also got a question in here as well.
Okay,
So Renee, do you want to go off mute and we can get your question, both of them answered?
Can you hear me?
yes.
Yep.
Okay. My question is right now with the paid leave Oregon, if I have a particular employee right now who's really sick, she's really young, and I've offered her OFLA, and she doesn't want to take that because she feels like she's not going to have enough time. And I guess what I'm asking is if she does one, can she actually do both in the same year? Can she do OFLA and paid leave Oregon like consecutively?
So if an employee applies for paid leave Oregon benefits, then that, and it also qualifies for OFLA, then it does have to run consecutively or concurrently. So they would have, that 16-18 week cap that is in our statute in a benefit year to be allowed for paid leave and unpaid leave.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, do we want to go to the next question, Sarah? That is, are the wages from Shelley, are the wages subject to FICA? Are you talking about the, Shelley, it might be helpful if you raise your hand. Are you talking about the paid leave Oregon benefits? Are they subject to FICA? And if that is the question, then for paid leave Oregon purposes, they are not. We are sending them at the end of the year on a 1099-G. They'll report it for on their taxes as income. And there'll be more information coming out from the Department of Revenue on how the contributions can be subtracted if they can, depending on the leave type. Hope that answers your question, Shelley.
Cindy, is it 25 full-time equivalent employees?
So the employer size of 25 is 25 employees on average. It does not matter if they're working full-time, part-time, seasonal. It's a head count, I think is the way I refer to it. And so there is I could put on in the chat, there is a calculation of how you figure the employer size by looking back on the 12th day of each month and figuring out how many employees you had at that moment in time. And then dividing that by 12 to see how many on average you have. If that number is 24.9, then you are under 25. We don't round up in this example.
All right, Denise has a question. I've had concerns with payments being timely. Are payments going out weekly without delay? So as far as my understanding is when everything is approved and everything is ready to go, then the payment should be going out weekly. And it'll also depend on if you are filing consecutively or intermittently.
I think here to add, Sarah, is just a little bit about our process. So when we receive an application for a request for leave from an employee, a letter will automatically go out to the employer, letting them know that an employee applied for paid leave. The letter that goes to the employer is whoever the employer was the employee themselves listed. And so we have been experiencing some where they've not listed the correct employer, so it might be a delay on getting that letter out to the correct employer. And after that, there's 14 days to respond to the letter. We may send, looking at the application, we may need additional information from the employee, so we may send a letter to the employee, as well as asking maybe for some additional information on the medical certification. So it depends on when we get information back from the employer, the employee, and the medical provider as to when we can make a determination on that application. So once we've received everything, then we try and process that within 2 weeks and get those payments out. If an individual has already taken leave, then they might get 3 checks in one time frame, because we would back pay those times that they were on leave that we did not pay for yet. So hopefully that helps with that, understanding that process a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. And I think your response kind of goes with Hannah's question about how long is it taking for employees to get approved, and it seems like it's taken a long time. So now employers are left in limbo for if the leave was approved.
Yeah, so if everything is attached to the application, it goes quicker, but what we've been experiencing is the new program, people are still learning, and so not all the documentation is properly attached. And so additional time frame is being taken right now, unfortunately.
And then Tristan, what happens if we receive notification from the state that an employee applied but has not been with the company for 90 days? So it's that 90 days is really for that job protection piece. So if your employee has been, working for you for 90 days consecutively, if they come back on paid leave, then they will have that job protection. But if they have been less than that, then there would be no protection on their job.
Sarah. It looks like the next question is from Amanda. I had an instance of a claim being filed by an employee that ended up being fraudulent. I've also had an instance where former employees were filing claims. Are there instructions on what to do with these situations that seem to be fraud? So for the first example where you had an employee that ended up being fraudulent, I would encourage you as an employer and the employee to report on Francis Online that this is fraudulent. You as the employer can respond to the employer notice, and in that response you can say that this employee did not file. You can attach a document, like maybe an email from the employee and yourself saying they did not file. You can also go on Francis Online. You do not have to have an account. There is, under the employee button, there is a link that says report fraud, and right there is where you'd fill in that information for yourself, or the employee can do that themselves as well. This is very helpful for all of us to make sure that we're paying the claims that are due to the correct people, so we really appreciate you helping with this. Are there instructions on what to do if situations where there's a former employee filing a claim? So when an employee fills out an application, they'll list their current employers and they'll list past employers. And so the past employers listed may sometimes get a letter saying that this individual has applied for paid leave if that employee listed that former employer. And so you can just report and say that they are no longer working for you. And responding to that letter would be helpful and make the process for the application go quicker. So Amanda, hopefully that answers your questions there.
Shannon, there's another question about fraud from Cassie at 1018.
Okay, perfect. So Cassie says, what do you know about fraudulent claims? I didn't sign up for Oregon paid leave, but I received a notice that I filed a claim. How did this happen? And should I be concerned that someone has my personal information? Unfortunately, there are some people out there trying to file claims on behalf of other people. There's information sold on the out on the internet all the time, and so we are trying diligently to stop those fraudulent claims from occurring. And so, like I said previously, you can report that fraudulent claim on our website. You go to Paid Leave Oregon, and up top there's a Francis Online link, and there is a way for you to report that, or you can report it on the phone number that was previously on our screen by calling in and reporting that to the phone lines. So hopefully that helps answer that a little bit. Next one, it looks like Hannah says, why do the intermittent leave approvals not have a frequency and duration? Great question, Hannah. So when an individual can qualifies for paid leave, they're either going to be taking intermittent leave, which means they're going to be working off and on between those days they need to take off for paid leave, or there's called consecutive leave, which is they're just going to take one period of time and not work during that time. The intermittent leave, we do not know the frequency and duration sometimes because they might not need the leave for that week. And so with the documentation from the doctor, we might see that the documentation says that they can take up to 3 days a week. And so when they file their weekly leave report is when they'll let us know how many days they actually did take. Maybe they only took one, maybe they took none, maybe they took 2 days that week. And then, as I discussed previously, we're still trying to figure out and program to allow for employers to get letters after the fact that says, this employee took leave on Tuesday and Thursday this week, so you'll have that information to make sure they weren't working when that was happening.
Okay, and Julie, I would like to know if we are required to register for Francis Online. We use a payroll service and they file our paperwork for Paid Leave Oregon. We also have less than 25 employees. I'm interested in Francis Online to handle our employees' claims. I also want to note I've received 2 claims for people I have no idea who they are. Yeah, that is concerning. And as Shannon mentioned, you can go to our website and or go to Francis Online and report fraud on those claims for those folks that you don't know who they are. But if you are using a third party, like a payroll service, to manage all of your payroll, and then they would most likely be using our Francis Online account. Shannon, is that correct? And then
You could,
the
sorry, Sarah, I want to add, you could
Yeah,
also, as the employer, get access to their Francis Online. There's going to be some verification documentation that you're going to need to do. You're going to have to verify that it's you and your quarterly payroll report information. So there'll be some information, but you should be able to also get access to Francis Online. And I put in the chat the link to Francis Online. That is the homepage, and on that homepage, there's two tiles on that homepage. There's one for employee and claimants, and one's for employers, self-employed, and third-party administrators. The employers is where you'd log in and actually get your Francis Online account. The reporting of fraud, we do not have a link from the employer tile yet, so please go to the employee and claimant tile, and that's where you can report the fraud.
Shannon,
yeah,
I was going to ask, can employers also respond to the questionnaire to report the fraud?
Yeah, they can definitely respond to the questionnaire. So if they did get a questionnaire already sent to them, they can respond to that as well. And like I said, attach any information that they have, maybe an email from the employee saying I didn't apply, or anything along those lines.
All right, and Dawn, does a C-section qualify for the extra 2 weeks of coverage? So that information would be coming from your authorized medical provider to provide that information if it is going to be an additional 2 weeks of coverage.
But typically, Dawn, if an individual is pregnant, then they will get the 2 weeks of pregnancy, the additional 2 weeks for pregnancy.
Lynette, again, we've got some fraudulent claim notices, and as Shannon's been saying, you just go to our website and go to Francis, and then you can click on to report fraud.
Yep. So Shelley, the question is, are the wages subject to FICA for employer and employees? Again, I'm questioning, Shelley, if you could raise your hand, are you asking for the paid leave Oregon benefits? Is that what you're considering, wages?
Kelly's down a little bit further in the chat.
Oh,
again,
okay, perfect.
She doesn't have a microphone.
Okay.
She's just wondering, I think, that if the employee and the employer are obligated to pay FICA taxes on the benefit payments.
Yeah, so if the benefit payments are paid by Paid Leave Oregon, then no, the employer is not responsible for paying any of the taxes on that. Like I said, the employee will receive a 1099-G at the end of the year, and they'll report it on their personal income tax return according to those instructions.
And Shannon, Shannon Girth, not you, Shannon.
Okay.
Question, did you say the state does not cover sick child leave? Just in clarification. So under OFLA, I know it's Oregon sick child, but again, we do cover family leave. So if that's something that your medical provider authorizes, if you have a sick child, then
With a serious health condition.
With a serious health condition, then that information need to come from the medical provider.
All right, next question. It looks like from Jessica. Will required reporting be discussed? I'm hoping ADP has been doing it, but I need to call them and be sure is reporting done through Francis Online. So Jessica, if you have a microphone and can come off mute, I think some additional information would be helpful here to help understand the question fully. Maybe. Trying to find you on the list. Maybe it does not have a microphone. Okay. So as an employer, withholding for the contribution should be paid quarterly on your quarterly payroll report. And that if ADP is doing your other payroll reporting, then they should be reporting the quarterly contributions there as well. On that quarterly payroll report, you report the wages that the employee has earned, as well as the employee contributions. And if the employer is subject, then the employer contributions get reported there as well. And they are paid quarterly. And that can be done on Francis Online.
Chanel, is there a plan to develop reports online so we can see all the employees on leave with their dates of absence and any other helpful information? It's tough to reconcile with the current online setup. And again, that's really great feedback and something that we can bring to the team to discuss.
Yeah, and Chanel, you're not the only one that's brought this up, so we are discussing it, so thank you. Stay tuned for more changes there. So Jan says, how long is the processing period once the employee request has been received? I have employees that put in requests close to 2 months ago. In one case already back yet. We have not received the answer to if it's accepted. How much will they be paid while off of work? This has made it difficult to top up as requested by employee by using Oregon sick or vacation leave. So there's a couple of questions here, Jan. How long is the processing period for them once employee's request has been received? We try to get to the information within 2 weeks. We are a new program and new employees are learning how to process returns. So I think, are a little slower on that, but I don't believe it's been the 2 months. And so in that case, I would encourage your employee to contact the department and see if there's any information that we're still waiting on. And that's why, and see what's held up there. As far as what the employee will be paid, there is a letter that goes out to the employee that talks about their payment amount. That payment amount is assuming a full week's worth of pay. So if an employee is only taking 2 days off, then that amount will need to be prorated, but that should give you an estimate of how much the employee will be paid in a week. Again, that goes to the employee though, and not the employer. So you'll have to get that from your employee.
All right, Shelley, does the 10% max withholding from gross wages for repayment of health insurance benefits when employee returns from leave include catch-up contributions for flexible spending and HSA that are also in arrears, or can an employer deduct the elective FSA and HSA after the 10% cap has already been met?
Shelley, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I would have to go back and look at our administrative rule, but I believe the 10% is just for healthcare insurance benefits. After I get done talking, I can put the administrative rule in the chat so that can be seen a little bit more, but I believe it does not include the HSA or flexible spending accounts.
Okay, and Julie, when an employee applies for Paid Leave Oregon stating a family member is sick, how is that being verified by Paid Leave Oregon? So that'll be verified by the documentation that we receive from the medical provider. So you'll need to get that information and submit it in order to file and apply for Paid Leave Oregon.
So if from the medical provider, if the patient is not the one claiming benefits, then the medical provider should be listing who is needing to take care of that individual. That is the patient. So the additional information is needed there.
Shannon, can you say that one more time? If the medical provider, about the patient?
If it is, when the medical provider is filling out the information, if it's not the patient that is applying for Paid Leave Oregon benefits, so let's say my child is the one, then it would need additional information saying basically that my child is needing assistance from me, his mom, type thing as an example.
Okay, thank you.
So Dawn says, what is the process for the employer to recoup these funds if they're issuing emergency checks while the employee is waiting for their paid leave Oregon check? That is a process, Dawn, between you and the employee for that. That is not a requirement that the employer has to issue checks while somebody's waiting for paid leave Oregon benefits. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer there. It would be more of what's your policy currently if you overpay an employee.
I see a hand from Marcette.
Perfect.
Hi, I just wanted to know what the time frame that we can, if we're able to give employees a time frame to apply for paid leave Oregon after they've let us know that they want to. So we have an issue with a couple employees that aren't eligible for OFLA or FMLA. They said, oh yeah, I'm going to apply for paid leave Oregon. We follow up with them, you know, hey, have you had the chance to fill out this information? And then they said, oh yes, I'm working on it, but we haven't given them a firm deadline as to when they need to get back to us or send that information over. I didn't know if we were able to.
So the employee is saying, hey, they're working on applying, or the department is saying we're working on it?
The employee.
So the employee, an application is due 30 days prior to the leave or 30 days after the leave has been taken. And so there is a time frame there that they need to apply for paid leave Oregon benefits.
Okay. And so essentially this would be an intermittent leave, and they've had multiple absences that could potentially be eligible.
We're past
If
the 30
would
days.
be what?
Are we past the 30 days?
We are past 30 days from the original, when we had the original conversation, like, hey, this is what you're eligible for, this is what you need to apply for.
Mhm.
And they've been saying they've had an issue connecting with their doctor. So I guess from that initial conversation, like me sending, hey, this is all the information for Oregon paid leave, go ahead and apply. Could I start the clock from that day? And then if they haven't made any action by 30 days.
This is a great question. And as an employer, I think it's a place that is hard to administer because they're saying, hey, I'm taking this leave that is job protected leave, and then they never apply for it. Then what do you do? I unfortunately don't have advice for you here on what to do. I would have to have you look at maybe contacting Bully to help with that. Unfortunately, I don't know how to answer that one. If they said they were going to take paid leave and they never end up taking it, what recourses from an employer standpoint do they have?
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
So Chrissy's question, again, what is the current level of service on responding to employer questions via the paid leave email?
I thought it was 48 hours that there was a response that said that we at least acknowledge that we got it, because sometimes additional research is needed. But I thought, am I wrong there, Sarah? I don't know.
No, I thought it was either 24 or 48 hours. That at least it's been like we've received your message. But to like fully solve it, it just depends on the content of the the message and what needs to happen.
I want to acknowledge too that we've received a lot of questions via email, so we might not be meeting that turnaround time right now.
Okay, Emily, do you know our turnaround time?
I don't know exactly, but I do know that people are working overtime to answer these questions and doing our best.
Thanks, Emily. So it sounds like it might be more than the 48 hours right now, but again, it does depend on the question. So if there is policy research still needed, that would take longer time than asking about somebody's specific claim. So it depends on the question there. Does Oregon paid leave cover childcare issues like California? Californian covered 40 hours per year unpaid. I am not aware of this being allowed for paid leave Oregon purposes. I'm not familiar with California's laws, so I don't know what is exactly discussed here. I know OFLA allows child care issues for sick child. That is not allowed for paid leave Oregon purposes. Again, the reasons for paid leave Oregon is for serious medical conditions for you, yourself, or your family member, and for safe leave.
And Jessica's following up, they do their quarterlies.
Yeah, so on the quarterly payroll report, then they should, the third-party administrator should be reporting the paid leave Oregon wages and paying those contributions.
Christine, it sounds like the employer is asking if they can require somebody to claim paid leave Oregon. But my understanding is you can't require it if the employee doesn't do it. So that's true. The employer cannot require an employee to apply for paid leave Oregon. It's an option to the employee.
And then the last question, if an employee goes on paid leave, do they need their paycheck at that time, or are we able to follow the normal payroll date? There is nothing in paid leave Oregon statute that says that you have to issue a paycheck earlier for them since they're on paid leave, so you can follow your normal payroll dates unless there's other laws or regulations out there that I'm not aware of, but there's nothing in paid leave Oregon statute that requires you to do that.
And Kathy, an employee filed a paid leave claiming they decided not to take the leave. However, received an additional letter from paid leave Oregon. Do I tell employees, should they notify paid leave Oregon to cancel their claim? Yeah, if they're not going to take it, then they can go to Francis Online and they can cancel their claim.
Yeah, so this, we can expand on this a little bit, Kathy. If there's if an employee will ask for 12 weeks of leave, but then they decide they only need 10 weeks of leave, they should be notifying the department within 10 days when they have a change in their application. So in this case, the cancel, they should be letting us know within 10 days, or if there's a change in the leave also.
Thanks, Shannon.
Looks like you all cleared the question bank. Good job. I have a couple of questions about equivalent plans that were sent in prior to the webinar, if I can ask those really quickly.
Perfect, Derek.
So the first one is, when an employee who is employed for the first 8 months of the year and contributed through payroll to our equivalent plan fund leaves for other employment, however, needs to apply for benefits, do they apply through our equivalent plan or through the state Francis system?
Great question. So an employee applies with who their current employer is. And so if their current employer is a state plan employer, then they would apply through the state plan. Even equivalent plan employers still report the employee's wages. And so we'll have those wages amounts, even though contributions were not paid to the state plan, their benefits will be based off of those wages that they had at the equivalent plan employer.
Thank you. How long does the equivalent plan have to pay out the benefits after first establishing the claim?
So the equivalent plans are subject to the same regulations as the state plan. So the state statute says once you've received all the information, the goal is to get it out as reasonably as possible within 2 weeks. And so
And last,
that should be following the same.
Does the employer have to fill out the forms on Francis Online for the equivalent plan?
Great question. So Francis Online is only for the state plan program. And so we have been receiving applications for people that are with employers that have an equivalent plan. And so those will be getting denied because they do need to go through their equivalent plan employer and that process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shannon. I know that you alluded to the meeting later this afternoon. If you wanted to give the folks on the webinar more information or retell that information to them so they could potentially join, that might be helpful.
Yeah, so if you go to our website, you can register for our community conversations as Benefits Explained. It's from 3 to 4, and we do a similar presentation. It's a little bit longer, geared more to the broader audience for both employees and employers. And then we do open it up for Q&A as well. And you can also, very similar platform, just put questions in the chat as well if you want.
Thank you. Oh, we have one more question.
Oh, Griselda, if someone doesn't use their paid leave Oregon, does it roll over every year? So it's paid leave Oregon is based off of your benefit year. So if you don't use it, it does not roll over. You would just basically start a new claim. It's just a rolling 52 weeks. So once if you open up a claim, or if you don't open up a claim, then there's nothing to roll over.
Right. Like we can wrap up. We'll
Thanks.
sign off now.
Thank everybody for their questions and their time. And like we said previously, if you would like to join any of our community conversations, you can sign up on that link that's in the webinar chat. And you can also see where we're at other events as well.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day, everybody. Thanks.